Open at Austin time over on FPO. We'll talk through some results first. Coming in at third, we had Owen Scoggins. Then we had Kristen Lott. Then we had Holland Handley. And winning the tournament was Hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley, absolutely dominating the FPO division.
Do we have a stroke total?
I don't know if we have a stroke total, but we have some averages here. So Hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley is going to be the first thing we got to talk about, because obviously we're not going to get to the results yet, because this is round 1 and 2 they played at Sprinkle Valley. And when you look at it, Holland Handley did win the tournament, by the way, and Kristen lost 6 strokes to Holland on Hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley alone. Ended up losing by 1 overall.
It's crazy that that was it. Like that, just like
she would have won by 5.
Well, no, she should have lost even more strokes to Holland Handley on that hole.
Well, yeah, she would have won by 5 if Kristen across 2 rounds would have taken a 15 across both the rounds instead of a 21 across both the rounds. She would have won this tournament by 5.
Yeah.
So it was a par 5, if you're not aware, and Kristen went 11-10. Holland went 8-7 or something like that. Holland had 15 strokes on it. Kristen had 21 strokes. The average for the FPO field was 3.18 strokes over par across both the rounds out there. And to be fair, it played very difficult in MPO as well, but the big storyline was in FPO. So what was killing most people in FPO was the approach shot. So how this hole worked is you were throwing to kind of a landing zone that was like a weird shape. It had a little cutout in it, so you kind of had a short landing zone and a long landing zone that was attached over to the left.
Those shots were not really demanding. Like, yeah, there were some ways to get yourself in trouble.
And some people did. Kristen went OB off the tee.
Right, but for the most part, because also what you had, especially the second day, were, everybody's laying up to the staircase. So, like, nothing at the beginning of that hole really is going to land you anywhere other than a pretty good spot to attack.
Correct.
The island.
So that's how the hole laid out. It was kind of like there. And then from there, you were attacking an island that was somewhat blind because you had to go up this staircase. But what made this hole difficult was from your approach shot, if the disc didn't fly over any part of the island, you could not progress to the drop zone. So you had to rethrow from the edge of OB until your disc flew over any part of the island or landed on the island. If it flew over any part of the island and was OB, you could go to the drop zone and play from there.
That's tough.
So it led to people having to just rethrow from the edge of the OB.
Yeah.
Now,
it was
on
real USDGC vibes.
On coverage, it didn't look like too difficult of a shot, but players kept kind of fluffing it and missing short or missing left and right to not get it there. And then Austin Beer Works, which was basically where this course was. I believe this is the brewery that's right behind there. But anyways, they posted on Reddit and posted the dimensions of this hole. So this kind of gives you another perspective to kind of break this down a little bit more. So from the beginning of OB to the island green is 150 feet. So essentially from where if I throw my shot, it lands short, I now progress up to, you have 150 feet into the island. So that's the distance between those two.
Not far.
Then the island green is 40 feet by 45 feet. That's how big this island is. So you're throwing 150 feet into a 40 by 45 feet. And the basket, this is, I think, the part that got people in trouble. The basket is 10 feet from the front of the island green. So the basket's pin location was up close. So from the front of the island green to the basket was 10 feet, but the whole island in of itself was 40 feet by 45 feet. Then the island drop zone was 35 feet to the basket. So the island drop zone's at the very back of the island, putting towards the basket. So that is the dimensions of this hole. Erica Stinchcomb and Madison Walker on Jomez as the commentary team tore into this hole. They basically just said it was bad course design. I believe Madison was trying to say, oh, it's not great. And Erica just kept going, Madison, it's bad. Let's just call it what it is. It's bad course design. And their main argument was basically it was a blind island. And because of where you were at the end, you had to throw nose up because you had to go up over these stairs to access said blind island.
Well,
and then mint discs. I just want to give everyone the full context before we talk about us. So mint discs they're the ones who were the host of this tournament, course designers, everything.
They dropped a book.
So they wrote on Reddit, which has since been deleted, but when anything's posted on the internet, it's never deleted.
Forever.
So this is from Disc Golf Fanatic, who took a screenshot and posted it. From a different perspective today is the title. So this is the course designer's perspective on Hole 18. Yes, we want Sprinkle Valley to be a demanding course. We want you to always expect it to be when you're at Sprinkle. It's built to make you play golf. Par is the goal on a lot of holes, even for MPO. It's mentally a very difficult course to play, especially in tournaments. You see the emotional grind on players, hear it in their voices when they break down a hole. The course slows you down and asks you to think. If you miss something, it will bite back. But watching and listening to FPO on Jomez was really hard. No, we never wanted to humiliate any of them ever. Yes, there are very valid operational and design reasons some changes were made for this event. We wanted to push it. What he's referencing there is this hole did not play this way for U.S. women's. I believe the big difference was it just wasn't an island green.
Yeah.
So that was the big change. So that's what he's referencing, why they made changes for this event. Back to the post. The stairs and hazard area were never really playable areas due to safety and weather. We can't count on good weather, and the pond has been full of water for events before. It's even less fun than this. Playing from the stairs is pretty sketchy too. The perspective is different now that the competition days are over for us at Sprinkle. We get to step outside of it. Operational eyes are different than players' eyes and viewers' eyes. None of the reasons the event changed Hole 18's design can logically outweigh how most of FPO feels about that hole after 2 rounds. But yes, that was the original design plan more than 2 years ago. Farther explanation on why it ended up being that way will be given to FPO. Finding that happy medium for the players, Disc Golf Pro Tour, and PDGA in course isn't easy when you try to make a hole like this. We will do our best to find that place, but do still want to have a hole that do still want the hole to have the pressure it needs to have. But everyone has to also understand each other's perspective. We want a hard course. They want to make a living and do the things that are realistic for them. I haven't been able to talk to a lot of FPO directly yet, just in passing. They all understandably weren't happy after the end of each round. So otherwise, we are really proud of the course and venue. It did create the type of golf and shot shaping we wanted to see. Just sucks to put friends through that and not be on the same page about it with FPO. Make them feel used. There's a lot of opportunity there for us. In the disc golf. Yeah, that's the sentence. Make them feel used. There's a lot of opportunity there for us in the Disc Golf Pro Tour to lead by example with our response to this. We'll address it with FPO from here, staying out of the rest of the comments on this otherwise. Wish everybody the best at Harvey.
It's just a disc golf hole.
Okay. Well, they didn't necessarily. Go ahead, Hunter.
I'll just final thing before we talk through this hole.
Yeah, you're good.
So Erica and Madison tore into the hole. That's kind of what this post is addressing. Mm-hmm. I asked on Twitter basically what made this hole play so hard. Was kind of my question. What made hole 18 play so hard? Because I just didn't want to put my opinion out there. I just wanted to ask the general public and see what they were. Pretty much everyone disagreed with Erica and Madison, and they all were blaming the players on lack of course management, bad decision making, so on and so forth, instead of blaming the hole design. So that's kind of the two perspectives. Is some people, mainly the players who were there, were talking about this is just bad course design. This is a bad hole. It's too demanding. From home, which we're watching through a screen, so a lot of different perspective there, but a lot of people who were watching from home were like, this is just bad course management. And the biggest thing they're citing when saying that is, why are you ever missing short? You have 150 feet into the island. All you have to do is fly a part of the island and you go to the drop zone. The hole's averaging 3 point some strokes over par. Why are you ever trying to just attack the basket when you could be attacking the back of the island green, chuck it out the back, which I think we saw Holland do once, chuck it out the back, and then you're going to the drop zone. Right. Now, that breaks the hole, and that's saying this is bad course design. Sure, that's that argument. So now that we have that whole thing, what do you think? Bad hole, bad decision-making, a little bit of both. What are we looking at here?
The audience is always going to side with chaos and look for reasons to blame the players.
It's more fun.
Yeah, because it was an absolute spectacle to watch.
Yeah.
Now, because here's what I enjoyed watching it. It was fun. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, they're using the FPO field right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a disc golf hole at the end of the day. However, do I think that the hole has some issues? I do think that a blind island shot that is that small is dumb.
Okay.
Now, I will say this. It is a little bit more redeemed because there were trees on either side. So you knew what direction to throw in. If you look at like the bad shots the players were throwing, they knew it was out before. They didn't have to look at it. They were Kristen was sawing off forehands. She shanked the backhand. Like, it was a pretty easy. Like I was watching the Jomez and watching it back to get kind of my perspective on it, and you kind of knew right out of their hand if the shot was good because is it far enough and is it straight? And if those two were correct, then it was fine. And we saw an entire lead card all chuck it on the island. Like it wasn't when it was done correctly. It did look quite routine. I think that the hardest part of the shot was that it was the nose up angle. You can lay up not as close to the stairs to give yourself maybe not as much of a nose up angle. That's an option. And I do think that was the only defense of the hole because, well, not the only defense, but the major defense, because if you had a 150-foot shot, I mean, that's a Gannonberg jump putt. If you had that without that nose up, I don't think this is really that difficult. So I think it's not perfect. Like I said, I don't love a blind island shot when it's that small. It's one thing if it's a big island. This one, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I do agree that course management, like, just had to come into play where it's like, especially after you've practiced the course, like, you know the basket's at the front of the island.
Yeah.
You should be aiming to throw a laser beam past the basket.
Yeah.
And that should have been the goal. And so, yeah, a lot of the poor play was unexcusable. And then Kristen gets the drop zone in the one round and just launches her putt over the basket. So, like, people were getting frazzled. Like, that's what it came down to, is like, I think a lot of the bad play is like when players were calm, cool, and collected and executing, it didn't look that difficult. It was either like, okay, you crossed and maybe just went OB, or you knocked it on. Because like I said, everybody was playing to lay up to the stairs. So you were giving yourself an 150, I mean, you're a professional. Like, it's nose up and it's blind, but like, it's just throw it straight and far enough. It's not asking you to go around a corner. So I do think it's a little exaggerated, the tragedy, but I also don't think it's a perfect hole. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it was cinema just because the hole was designed perfectly. It is a little silly, but yeah, it provided excitement, and sometimes that's what we need.
Yeah, so I think we're dealing with a little of both here. I think there is some very poor course management and bad decision-making going on.
And just bad throws.
And I also think it's not the best hole. I actually talked about it in the preview show. I said I'm glad this is happening rounds 1 and 2 because the calls, I was talking about it more from like the call perspective of did a disc cross the island or not.
I don't know if we really had a dose of like controversy at that.
There was the only time I saw was like Des Redding was pretty positive. One didn't cross in, but the spotter called that it crossed in. But it's like we're watching through a camera.
Yeah.
So like Des Redding, like I'm sorry, we don't know.
The spotter knows a little better.
If Adam Hammonds was in bounds, we definitely can't call whether this is crossing island or not. But I was more talking from that perspective because it's just a weird rule. It's not something you have to deal with often. And I think that is what we really were dealing with here is players don't have to do this often, right? Is you don't have a hole hardly ever, basically just USDGC, where if in the bunker rule, which I think might come back in effect at European Open, but even that, it's not, you don't get OB penalty strokes.
Yeah.
You don't have this often where like I throw a shot
stroke and distance
and I'm rethrowing.
It's scary.
You don't have that pressure often. And so I think that is more what was causing a lot of it was just uncomfort.
Yeah, if you gave those top FPO players, if you sat them at the base of the stairs in a few different spots really, and there was no pressure and you just said, okay, throw 100 of these shots, and they probably land in like 80% of them.
That's what I'm imagining. I'm betting during practice it wasn't even in their minds.
Right.
Because it's on paper, it's not that difficult of a shot.
There's only one way to find out.
150. We got to go to Sprinkle Valley.
We have to go to Sprinkle
Valley.
But
it's on paper, it's a 150-foot shot to a 40 by 45-foot island green. Right? Those are the statistics. Nose up, not nose up. I think that what was going on is probably during practice, this was a pretty routine shot that players weren't stressed out that much about.
Yeah.
And then you get in a tournament and you've missed it twice in a row.
And that pressure's just compiling on itself.
Now you're stressed.
You got to throw a different disc. Because that's what I'm saying.
I love it.
My biggest gripe would have been if, let's say this shot has to go a little to the left or it's a wide open field. But because there were trees on the left and right, and like and also you have a staircase that's lined up with the island. So like you are given the visual aid. And could you see the basket from the, like, were they players, if they were far enough away, were they able to see the basket?
It was tough because of the angle on coverage.
Because I couldn't tell with coverage. Like
Let me pull it up on my phone.
Because, well, even if you can't, like, you're given a pathway to it, and like you're allowed to use rangefinders. Like in practice, you should know, like, okay, I need to throw this disc this hard.
This
like,
is the grainiest picture I've ever seen.
I am just wondering if it was a situation, like you said, where like players weren't having the biggest struggles with it. And so they didn't prep it. Like they didn't know it was going to be as important. Of like this shot will literally determine the tournament if I can execute it twice.
Well, but
that's what it came down to.
I want to finish talking about the players, and then I want to talk about the hole. So here's where I get a little confused, right? So if you look at MPO, like I said, MPO it was a hard hole. It played 1 stroke over par the first day. It played 1.3 strokes over par the second day. So pretty tough hole, right? Par 5, averaging over par, but nothing we haven't seen before. FPO, this is nothing I've ever seen before. Round 1, it played 2.8 strokes over par. Round 2, 3.55 strokes over par.
Wow.
If I'm Kristen or Holland or anyone in contention, this is where my last point on, I think a lot of this is on the players, is when you're coming into day 2 and you know this whole day 1 averaged 7.8.
Yeah.
I'm not even attempting to make the island.
Just
I'm throwing
it.
2 shots, and then I'm telling the gallery back there, hey, heads up, I'm throwing a tunnel shot 350 feet past there. I'm just ripping this because whether I hit the gap or not, I'm getting across that island.
Yeah.
And that's my play. I'm just
also
ripping a backhand, forehand, whatever I got to do.
And also,
to give myself a drop zone putt that, maybe the drop zone putt is my par save. I lay up, I take a bogey, and I gain 1.8 strokes on the field.
Which, that perspective can be hard to have in, day 4 when you're thinking, let's just say day 3, the tournament's coming more to a close, and you're caught up more in, jockeying for position. But it's just day 2 of the tournament, so you kind of can just play the stats. And if it backfires and you do lose a stroke...
I'm pretty positive that's what Holland did. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure day 2, Holland said, screw it, I'm going deep.
I saw a few players throwing pretty darn
aggressive. You better be careful, Hunter, claiming
shots.
what somebody did.
That is true. Because I'm pretty sure it might have been her second throw because it looks like she went OB and then had to go to drop zone. So it might have been her second throw.
I was just out of frustration at that point.
I just remember a shot, and I'm pretty sure Holland threw it where it was. She did exactly what I'm talking about, and it was basically afterwards the player was talking like, I probably could have thrown a mid instead of a fairway driver, but I was making sure I went deep.
Yeah.
And it was like, that, now let's talk about the course, is where the hole's broken. Is when that is your best shot if you're not making the island, is to Simon Lizotte it and just be like, because he did this at Music City Open. Or I think it was a Heinl Design, right? That he did it at? D-Glow. It was D-Glow. That Simon did it at. When that's your best option, now, yes, the hole's broken.
Yeah.
When it's like, what I'm asking a player to do is get up there and just chuck a shot deep because you're going to end up in a better spot. That's where, yes, this hole was broken. I think that's where the hole design wasn't the best because at the end of the day, what could have happened, some solutions here, is there could have been just a generic drop zone at the top of the stairs where you throw a shot, it doesn't make the island, you're going to the top of the stairs. And then everything from, if you land on the island from there, you play your normal OB.
Just play it, or just play it like bunker.
Or play a bunker rule, which
bunker crossing doesn't matter.
Funny enough, that was what was suggested in Aaron Gossage and Ezra Adelhold's practice round when they played the hole, is they were talking about this shot and they're like, this should be hazard, is what they were saying.
That's fine too.
Mint Disc's reason for it not being hazard is basically a lot of the lies up there can get sketchy, and also the weather can make that ground even worse. But bunker rule, to Trevor's point, would be basically I throw short and you don't get a penalty, you just rethrow. It's what was hole 16 at European Open always has had bunker rule until last year they decided not to.
Yeah.
But that's what always happened there, where it's like you still have to execute the shot.
That makes sense.
But you're not getting a bonus penalty stroke.
And it's still adding pressure.
Yeah, there's still added pressure.
Right.
You still can't get the discs, but it's not 2 strokes every time.
Yeah.
It's 1 stroke.
Can you just imagine, it is so sad that this wasn't the final day, hole 18. It would have been electrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we could have literally had a 7-stroke deficit.
No stroke was safe because someone
and
could birdie it.
We could have used it because there was a huge gap in the FPO leaderboard.
Yeah. So overall, what do I think of this hole? I mean, obviously the hole is going to be changed next year. I think that's a pretty much guarantee.
I do think the design, the actual, forget the rules of the hole, the aesthetics of the hole. It's it's got some spunk to it. It's unique and fun. But yeah, obviously,
I think you just got to solve the drop zone. Realistically, is solve the rules around that. Put the drop zone somewhere else and make it where once you go OB, you can progress to the drop zone and still make it where you have to execute a shot from there. So it's not just you throw it OB, you just have a putt. Who cares?
I'm surprised some of those players didn't go out and light the little wooden bleacher things on fire.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, this was a mix of, was it a bad hole overall? Sure, I'll say it wasn't the greatest hole overall. I think there were some design flaws. Was it also really bad course management and decision-making part on a lot of the FPO players' part? Absolutely. I think we had a 1-2 because at the end of the day, nose up, not nose up, you're throwing to a 40 by 45 foot island from 150 feet out. I don't think that's too big of an ask for the top level of competitors. And, if I'm wrong there, then they're just not as good as I thought.
Oof.
So
I think that I'm not necessarily talking about this hole I just love situations where you're watching people just have to rethrow shots with the pressure building and building. Oh, it's so much fun.
It is, and I
don't like to be in that situation.
I think it does,
but I love to watch it.
I do think it exploits or showcases one of the weaknesses of disc golf, which is the majority of time in disc golf you don't have to think.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't have to break down holes. You don't have to think risk reward on a lot of shots. It's just throw it to a landing zone, get it as close to a basket as I can. Whatever happens, happens. And when you put players in situations like USDGC does, like the European Open at that bunker rule does, like this hole 18 does, you see it exposed where players have to think, and it breaks players. We saw it break Anthony Barella at the European Open. We've seen it break many a souls, hole 17, especially before they made the 3-stroke limit. Johnny McRae was literally on the tee praying because he couldn't get one to land in bounds. Like, they don't have to deal with that much, but it's some of the most entertaining golf you'll ever watch.